If you wanted to find a paperboy today, good luck. That kid on the bike with a canvas bag rolling through your street every afternoon around 5. The one who knew your dog's name and which door you wanted the paper left at. He is gone. The route is gone. The whole job is gone. And almost nobody noticed it happening. For about 50 years, the paperboy was one of the most common sights in America. Every neighborhood had one. He was 12, maybe 13. He had a canvas bag, a used bicycle, and a wholesale bill due every Saturday at noon. He was not anybody's employee. He was running his own operation, and most weeks he made more money than any of his friends knew what to do with. This is the story of how that job worked, what it actually taught a generation of kids, and how all of it vanished in about 20 years. The setup was straightforward. You went down to the newspaper office, filled out an application, and if a route opened up, you got it. Some kids waited months. In some towns, routes were so valuable that the outgoing carrier sold his to the next kid in line. Minimum age was usually 12, though a few papers let you start at 11 if you could prove you had it together. And here is the part that mattered. You were not an employee. The newspaper classified you as an independent contractor. You were at 12 years old, running your own operation. Here is how the money worked. You bought the papers from the newspaper at a discount. Then you delivered them. And every week or every month, you knocked on doors to collect what your customers owed. The difference between what you paid and what you collected, that was your profit. Pretty simple. But if somebody did not pay up, that came out of your pocket. You still owed the newspaper for those papers, whether your customers paid you or not. In the late 1950s, a monthly subscription to a small city daily ran about $1.20. A route with 110 customers put roughly $55 a month in your pocket. That was real money for a 7th grader in 1958. On a bigger route, you could clear $6 or $7 a week. Some kids in larger cities did a lot better than that. At the Hartford Courant in the mid-1960s, certain carriers were pulling in $50 a week, which rivaled the wages of some full-time workers, and these kids were putting in maybe 10 or 12 hours. Warren Buffett, delivering the Washington Post as a teenager in the 1940s, was bringing home $175 a month, more than most of his teachers made. But the money was only half the story. The daily grind is where the job really lived. If you delivered an afternoon paper, and most kids did, your workday started around 3:30 in the afternoon when the delivery truck dropped the bundles. You could hear it coming from a couple of blocks away. That rumble was your starting gun. You grabbed your stack, checked the count against your invoice, and started folding. Every single paper got folded tight and snapped with a rubber band. Then you loaded them into canvas saddlebags that hung on either side of your handlebars. If you walked your route instead of riding, the bag went over your head, one pouch hanging in front, one in back. You had until 5 o'clock to hit every house. Sundays were a different animal entirely. Papers dropped at 5 in the morning, and they did not come assembled. You got a pile of loose sections, inserts, coupon flyers, all of it separate. You sat on the ground and built each newspaper by hand, stuffing section after section until every copy was complete. A Sunday edition weighed 2 or 3 times what a weekday paper did, so your saddlebag could not hold the whole route. You would load up, deliver half the houses, ride back to the pile, reload, and finish the rest. All before 7 a.m. And then you went back to bed, if you were lucky. You did this every single day. Rain, August heat, snow up to your knees. It did not matter. If you were sick, you found a substitute or you went out anyway. If your bike broke down, you walked the route. There was no calling in. There was no notification system. The papers were already bought, already sitting in your driveway, and they had to reach 110 porches before dinner. Every kid who held that job understood the weight of that, literally and otherwise. The bicycle itself took a beating that would destroy a regular department store bike in weeks. You were jumping curbs, hauling 30 or 40 pounds of newsprint, grinding the same streets 6 or 7 days a week. Cheap bikes fell apart fast. Bent spokes, cracked bearings, dented rims. Most serious paperboys ended up on a Schwinn. A used one ran about $15 in the late 1950s. They had the heavy-duty frames and the spring suspension between the fork and the front wheel that actually survived a daily route. One kid in Grand Junction, Colorado, bought a brand new Murray for $30 when he got his route in 1958. Within months, the thing was falling apart. He went and found a used Schwinn and never looked back. And then there was Collection Day. Every paperboy will tell you the same thing. Collection Day was the worst part of the job. Once a month, sometimes weekly, you went back to every single house on your route and knocked on the door. You carried a collection book, a card for each subscriber with their address, what they owed, and when they last paid. If they paid, you tore off a receipt and handed it over. If they did not, you wrote it down and came back tomorrow, and the day after that. Some people were never home. Some ducked you on purpose. Some moved without saying a word, and you were stuck paying for weeks of papers that went to an empty house. One former carrier described chasing a customer who owed him $14.75, which in today's dollars is around $63. He left notes. He rang the bell 3 times a day. Then, one afternoon, the doorbell echoed through a hollow, empty house. The family had skipped town. He was 13, and he had just learned what a bad debt felt like from his own pocket. But Collection Day had its upside, too. Tips. The customers who appreciated you, who noticed you placed the paper inside the storm door instead of tossing it on the wet porch, would round up or slide you an extra 50 cents. Good service paid. Lousy service did not. You figured that out at 12 the same way you would figure it out running a company at 40. What made the paperboy different from any other kid's job was the relationship it built between the carrier and the street. You knew which houses had dogs that would chase you. You knew who was elderly and wanted the paper brought to the back door. You knew who went on vacation and needed deliveries held. Your customers knew your name. They watched you grow up, year after year, same route, same kid getting taller. And that connection ran deeper than most people realized. In Rocky Hill, Connecticut, in 1979, a carrier named Joseph Latina noticed an elderly customer had not picked up his paper in 5 days. He told his mother. She called the police. They found the man collapsed on his floor, barely alive, unable to move. The sergeant told the local paper that without that kid paying attention, the man would have died. That kind of thing happened more than you would think. In Hartford, a teenage carrier named Wesley Bouchard spotted smoke pouring from an apartment on his route in 1969, kicked in the door, and dragged a 72-year-old man to safety. The paperboy had eyes on the neighborhood in a way that nobody else did. At its peak, this was one of the most honored jobs in the country, if you can believe that. The U.S. Post Office put paperboys on a commemorative stamp in 1952, 3 cents. The inscription read, "In recognition of the important service rendered their communities and their nation by America's newspaper boys." During the Second World War, the Treasury Department authorized paperboys to sell war savings stamps to their route customers. They were 12 or 13 years old, selling government bonds door to door. By war's end, they had moved nearly $1.7 billion. A 1944 Treasury poster said it plain, "Thanks, buddy." Newspaper boys have sold over 1.25 billion war savings stamps since Pearl Harbor. The Newspaper Carrier Hall of Fame was established in 1960. Its members include Warren Buffett, Walt Disney, Martin Luther King Jr., John Wayne, Tom Brokaw, Jackie Robinson, John Glenn, and Harry Truman. When Buffett was asked why he accepted that honor after turning down dozens of others, he said that one hit his heart. Walt Disney delivered papers for the Kansas City Star starting in 1911, age 9, alongside his father and brother. He had over 600 customers on the afternoon route, and another 700 in the mornings. He got up at 3:30 every day for 6 years. In winter, he broke his own trail through 3 feet of snow. He missed 1 month in total, the whole time. He wrote about it decades later, still proud. So, that was the job. A weight and a privilege at the same time. It taught you that showing up mattered, that money came with strings, that customers were actual people with expectations. For millions of boys, and eventually a lot of girls too, the paper route was the first time the grown-up world looked at them and said, "All right, let's see what you've got." Then it ended. The afternoon newspaper died first, and it took the paperboy with it. In 1963, the major television networks expanded their evening newscasts from 15 minutes to 30 minutes. That pulled readers away from the evening paper, which had been the one kids delivered. Before then, the country had about 1,400 afternoon dailies and fewer than 400 morning papers. Afternoon delivery worked perfectly for a school kid. Classes ended at 3. Papers dropped at 3:30. Done by 5. But as readership shifted to mornings, papers followed. Morning delivery meant rolling out of bed before 6 a.m. Most kids couldn't handle that. Most parents wouldn't allow it. By 2000, morning papers outnumbered afternoon papers for the first time in American history. Then came the fear. September 5, 1982. A 12-year-old named Johnny Gosch left his house in West Des Moines, Iowa, before sunrise to deliver the Sunday edition of the Des Moines Register. Other paperboys at the drop site saw him sorting his bundles. One of them noticed him talking to a stranger in a blue car. That was the last confirmed sighting. Johnny's father found his red wagon 2 blocks from their house, still full of newspapers, every single copy undelivered. Police told the family they had to wait 72 hours before filing a missing persons report. He was 12. 2 years later, Eugene Martin, 13, another Des Moines Register paperboy, vanished the exact same way. Same city, same early morning route, same bag of papers left behind. Their faces were printed side by side on milk cartons from a local dairy. Johnny Gosch became one of the first milk carton kids in America. His mother fought for years and got Iowa to pass a law requiring police to act immediately on missing children. Other states followed. Neither boy has ever been found. Both cases are still open in 2026. Nobody decided that the paperboy should disappear after that. But parents who had seen the route as a way to build character now saw a kid alone in the dark, 5 in the morning. The streets had not necessarily gotten more dangerous. The feeling had changed, and that was enough. Meanwhile, the newspaper industry was collapsing. Daily circulation peaked in 1987 at just under 63 million copies. Then, it started a slide that never stopped. Craigslist hollowed out the classifieds. The internet pulled readers off the front porch. Papers folded. The ones that hung on consolidated routes needed drivers who could cover sprawling suburbs by car. A 13-year-old on a Schwinn could not keep up with that. The numbers lay it out cold. In 1990, about 70% of newspaper carriers in the United States were under 18. By 1994, that dropped to 57%. By 2008, it was 13%. The industry did not even call them paperboys anymore. They became independent delivery contractors. What went away with all of that was a particular kind of relationship between a kid and the neighborhood. The paperboy knew your house. You knew his name. You paid him at the door. You tipped him at Christmas. A woman in Virginia put it best years later. She said she had no idea who delivered her paper now. Growing up, the carrier was her friend Mike and his brothers. If there was a problem, you called Mike. Now the paper just landed in a yellow bag at the end of the driveway. Half the time it was the wrong paper. For decades, the route was the closest thing America had to a universal first job. You had customers, you had inventory, you had a bill due every week whether anyone paid you or not. You dealt with weather and dogs and deadbeats and dark winter mornings, and the slow realization that nobody was going to do this for you. Millions of Americans carried that with them their entire lives. A lot of them will tell you it was the most important job they ever had. There is nothing like it now. The afternoon paper is dead. The neighborhood route a kid could ride is gone. The weekly collection at the door, the face-to-face exchange of money for service, all of that depended on an industry and a version of suburban life that just does not exist anymore. Everything around the Paperboy changed. The news went digital. The routes went to cars. The schedule flipped to mornings. The trust retreated behind deadbolts. And the math stopped working for a kid on a bicycle. But if you were that kid, you remember. The weight of the bag, the rumble of the truck, the fold and the snap of the rubber band. Collection day, the customers who always had exact change, the ones who never did. The dogs, the snow, and that feeling of money in your pocket that you earned yourself, every cent of it, before you were old enough to shave. If that brought something back, I would like to hear about it. What was your route? How old were you? And what did you blow the money on? If you think these stories are worth telling, subscribing lets me know. The Paperboy is gone. But the people who were Paperboys, they are still here. And they never forgot it.